All right, good evening. I'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item on the agenda is to recognize former Councilwoman Teresa Harmon.
As everyone knows, Ms. Harmon had to resign this past August for moving out of the township, and we didn't get a chance to recognize her informally and present her with a token of our appreciation. Terry has, it sounds like a long time, but a quarter century in Horsham Township, raised a family, 3 children, and did all the parent stuff as the 3 children are going up through the elementary, middle school, and high school here in Horsham. I think they zeroed in on soccer, so I think she was a true soccer mom, and all the fundraising that went along with that, and all the organization and the cheerleading and the driving that went along with having 3 boys in sports, athletics. But she went on to first be a school board member, and Hatboro Horsham school board member. And then from there, she came to Horsham Township Council. So during her about 24 years, I think it was, 24 years, 25 years, we'll round off. But involved, very active in the community, very active with her family, her children. She really cared about Horsham, still does, but really cared about Horsham, and that's why she got involved. And we certainly miss her as a councilwoman, but also as a resident, and all that she volunteered for. So we wanted to take some time this evening just to recognize her and say thank you and give her a little gift from the township.
Terry, it's been a pleasure. And Dan, I think both of you guys have served the community with youth sports and being on the school board and council, so I appreciate everything your family has done for the township, and I wish you guys all the best. We have a proclamation here. Be it proclaimed, whereas it is an honor and privilege to recognize Teresa Harmon for her devoted service to Horsham Township and our residents as a member of the Township Council, and whereas Mrs. Harmon graduated from Bishop Shanahan High School and Shippensburg University. She was a Horsham Township resident for 24 years. Prior to Horsham Township Committee woman for 14 years, Hatboro Horsham School Board member, Military Installation Remediation and Infrastructure Authority Board member, and on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. Teresa Harmon has provided the leadership that has enabled Horsham Township to continue accomplishing its mission to respond to the needs and desires of its citizens, provide adequate, efficient, and economical municipal services, and facilities, and provide fully for the health, safety, and well-being of all its people. And whereas Teresa Harmon has administered planning regulations with a sense of fairness and has provided invaluable leadership and guidance on many significant projects to include transportation projects, growth of our parks and open space, and future development. She has continually provided courteous and comprehensive help to township officials, members of the public, and fellow township staff, and has always remained patient and understanding. And whereas her years of service bring great credit to herself, her husband Dan, and her 3 children, Danny, Maddie, and Tommy, in Horsham Township, having raised 3 upstanding young men while also competing in 9 marathons, to include 4 Boston marathons, where she ranked in the top 10% overall women and top 20% overall, show her commitment, characteristic she carried with her while serving for our community. Teresa Harmon truly exemplifies the noble endeavor to leave a place better than when found, and in doing so, inspires all of us to do the same. And whereas in recognition and appreciation of her years as a member of Horsham Township Council, we thank Teresa Harmon for her outstanding leadership, applaud her for her dedicated service to our community, and wish her the very best in her future endeavors. Thank you.
Harry, I'd just like to say thank you for the amount of time you spent involved with all of your different activities with Horsham Township, and we truly miss not having you around.
Thank you. I don't know if this is on. You all know how much I love being up here too, so it's supernatural for me. But I will step out of my comfort zone just to say thank you so much. That was beautiful. I really appreciate the proclamation that you just read, Sean, and thank you to all of you. Bill, you run this township so well. There is not a township like it, including where I moved. So we do miss that a lot. I miss all of you here. I also want to thank Greg Nesbitt and Mark McCouch, who are not here because they did such a great job for all the years that they were served. Obviously, thank you to all of you. When Sean and I both came on board, we really leaned a lot on Bill White's side as well. So thank you, Bill, for that. I'm extremely grateful. That was just so kind, and I could keep going, but again, this is not in my comfort zone. So I'm going to stop, but thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Pictures. Don't go anywhere. You know the routine.
Alrighty, next on the agenda is to announce that Horsham Township Voting District Poll 1-2 has moved, that has voted at Blair Mill Elementary School in the past will now vote at the Keith Valley Middle School. Again, that's Voting District Poll 1-2 is now at Keith Valley Middle School.
And if you look real quick on the screen, so there's 3 polls that will now vote at Keith Valley Middle School. As Mr. Wade just said, 1-2 now moves to the middle school. Those people will enter the main entrance and go to the library. So voting poll 1-2 enters the main entrance and goes to the middle school library is where they will vote. So the other 2 polls that have been there for many, many years, there's no change in those locations at the middle school. So we're trying to get this out as much as we can in the next week. So there's no confusion, hopefully, with this poll being relocated.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is to announce that the PA-DCED Commonwealth Finance Authority Local Share Account Grant Award for the replacement of our Fire Marshal Emergency Service Management Vehicle.
So as I always say, we have great staff here, and as council knows, we've been having some revenue issues the last few years and continue to have them with our revenue and our budget. Our fire marshal took it upon himself to his car was due to be replaced, his vehicle, and he applied for a grant through the Commonwealth Finance Authority Local Share Account. And I didn't expect him to receive the grant, but the good news is he did get the grant. So we just wanted to announce that this grant award to the township, it replaces his vehicle in the amount of $76,275 and gives us a little help in our budget. So we appreciate, it's Matthew Reinhardt, who's our fire marshal. He did take on the grant application himself, wrote the grant application, submitted it, and now he'll manage the grant application, grant award. But we appreciate him doing it, taking the time to do it, and then also being successful with his application and helping us a little bit in our budget.
Was that part of the 24 budget, or would it have been 25? Do you know?
It's going to be, his vehicle was supposed to be replaced in 24, but now that's all shifting to 25.
So it is like a savings for this current year then?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, thank you. That's great news. Next is opportunity for questions and comments from the public. All right. Next is the approval of the list of checks.
Just one point, out of your checklist, there's one check that's almost half your full amount is for our paving program this past summer. It's in the amount of $325,000 to James D. Morrissey. So just half the amount of your checklist is one check.
Move to approve the list of checks and all funds in the amount of $726,015.13. Further move to authorize payment of same.
Second?
The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, next on the agenda is to review the zoning hearing board applications to be heard in November.
You have actually two tonight. Your third one on your is a residential one that has been continued. They decided to continue today, so it's going to be taken off your agenda. So you have two this evening. Your first one is a commercial, Kimco Horsham LP, 314 Horsham Road, which is the Horsham Point Shopping Center, and they are here this evening. I know everyone is familiar with this shopping center. We usually call it the Giant Shopping Center to many of us in Horsham, and they would like to create a satellite use, and in order to do that, they would have to have two variances. The first one would to allow a drive-through facility as a retail service shop, and then a parking variance. Currently, they're required to have 364 spots. They currently have 375. They would go down to 357. So those are the two variances. Their attorney, Mr. Lewis, is here this evening to go over the application.
Good evening. Thanks, Bill. Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart. I represent Kimco, Horsham LP, the owner of the Horsham Point Shopping Center. Everybody I know knows, but at the corner of Horsham Road, Norristown Road, and Drescher Roads, the most recently approved site plan, which is dated but is accurate, is on your screen. I think everyone's pretty familiar with how that shopping center operates today. The center is in your C1 commercial zoning district, and the shopping center as it stands today is about just over 72,000 square feet total floor area between the inline retail and the giant anchored building. Mix of retail and service uses in there today. Kimco, as Bill pointed out, has entered into a lease with 7 Brew, and is seeking to add a 7 Brew drive-through coffee shop to the center. 7 Brew, which most people probably aren't yet familiar with in Montgomery County. I've had the pleasure of working with 7 Brew in a couple, one is in Collegeville. It's not open yet, but it's under construction, and then another out in Berks County in Sinking Spring, but they are slowly moving their way into Montgomery County. They're also expanding rapidly throughout New Jersey, and are a national purveyor of coffee and other drinks. Their model is a bit different from what most of us are used to. If you happen to be a Starbucks user or a Dunkin' user, or maybe you're a Wawa user, but their model is a little bit different. Their entire service is drive-through. There's no interior seating for their facilities, and they also don't make or serve food. It is drinks only. Drinks include lemonade, energy drinks, hot chocolate, coffee, and shakes, but it is all drinks prepared on site with no food, no cooking, what have you. It certainly is a component of why their facility can be the size that it is, particularly with no indoor seating. I think we included a site plan, if we can pull that up, Bill. Thank you. Excuse me. And so, although their facility is a drive-through concept, which would seem to lend itself to a hands-off experience, it's actually just the opposite with 7 Brew. It is a very hands-on, personalized service. They are not your typical drive-through. They don't rely on menu boards and a drive-up window where you sit and wait for somebody to hand you your drink. Rather, all of the ordering and all of the delivery of drinks actually is handled by employees of 7 Brew. So when they obviously have rushes in the morning and so forth, they have it staffed such that there are staff members with iPads that come to every single vehicle and are taking your order. So you don't have to wait until you get to the front of the line to place an order. And then as your drinks are prepared, they bring them to your vehicle. So that's done under a canopy, not unlike Chick-fil-A at busy hours tries to manage their orders that way, but you still have to pull around to the window to receive your food. This is a complete hands-on experience. And not only does that obviously add to the experience of people going to Seven Brew, but one of the fundamentals here is their service time is dramatically different than you would see at a Dunkin' or a Starbucks. The turnaround times are dramatically shorter. One, you're not dealing with food service, you're not having to wait for food to be prepared in any way, but also that personalized service makes it such that the waiting time for each customer is dramatically less over the course of that period. I do have with me the two franchisees for this operation. They are happy to answer any direct operational issues that you may have or questions that you have about their operations. But let me delve into quickly just the zoning hearing board relief. Bill summarized part of it, but I want to expand upon that. We originally filed an application for a zoning permit for this proposed use because we do believe that the use is actually permitted. We received a denial of that use, and the denial stated that although a retail service shop does not permit drive-through. I don't agree with that conclusion under the language in the ordinance. I don't think that the ordinance specifically precludes drive-through service for a retail service shop. By contrast, there are specific other enumerated uses that say, and I think it's retail store, says you cannot have a drive-through, whereas this use classification, which is a permitted use in this district, does not. So we actually took an appeal from that, and in the alternative, asked for a variance to permit that drive-through or drive-up service. And so that will be before your zoning hearing board. At the very least, I do think that it creates an ambiguity in the ordinance. And under the municipality's planning code, as I'm sure you've all heard many times from other people sitting in my scenario, that code provides that wherever there is an ambiguity, it's supposed to be read in the broadest terms to allow a landowner the greatest use of their property. So we did file an appeal because we do believe that it is a permitted use, but in the alternative asked for that variance. With respect to parking, Bill summarized the numbers very well. I appreciate that. The shopping center as it sits today is slightly overparked. The total square footage of the shopping center would require, with this addition, which is about 510 square feet, would require 364 parking spaces. By the time this is put in that front left corner, if you're heading westbound on Horsham Road, it's kind of the last corner of the shopping center, we would have 357, a discrepancy of 7 total parking spaces, which is a 1.9% deviation. As you probably also have heard before, contrary to the standard dimensional variance requests, which have a pretty high burden of proof, even though they are dimensional, there is an alternative, which is called de minimis relief, and there is no specific definition under Pennsylvania law of exactly what is de minimis. But as I put in our application, there are many cases that lend themselves to the conclusion that you can get up to 10% of a deviation still under a de minimis relief standard. De minimis relief is merely discretionary. It's not subject to that very high burden of proof you would see for a normal variance request. So here at 1.9%, or 7 parking spaces over 364 in a shopping center that very rarely sees a crowded parking lot, we have requested de minimis relief with respect to the parking. We have designed this, well, Kimco has done an initial design, Seven Brew also did an initial design, which is nearly identical. We don't believe that there's any anticipated conflicts here. We can stack, you can see the stacking in the blow-up version. That shows already 12 vehicles stacked in that location. If there's any additional stacking necessary, that should meet all their peak parking demands once they pass their honeymoon period. If there is any additional stacking necessary, if they are wildly successful, you can see that we do have the opportunity to extend that stacking further to the rear of the inline retail so that it will not interfere with any traffic flow within the center itself. So it has been designed in a manner that we don't believe will have any detrimental impacts to the shopping center, much less, obviously, the bigger concern, Horsham Road. You don't want anybody stacking in a way that would in any way inhibit ingress or egress to the center. Based on the information they have and the studies they've done, we are able to provide ample stacking for their peak periods. So again, I have representatives of Seven Brew here. We're happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Are you aware of the turn restrictions, the hourly turn restrictions?
Yes, 4 to 6 p.m., I think no left-hand turn out onto Horsham Road.
And you're aware of the Navy Federal Credit Union there?
It's on the corner, yes.
Yeah, that has a typically higher representation of disabled persons. That would be drastically reducing their parking in proximity to their banking location.
One thing to point out, and thank you for pointing that out, the parking generally utilized where their front door is actually on the opposite side of where we're proposing. But it's also important to note that our peak period is usually from about 7 to 9 a.m. prior to the Navy Federal Credit Union being open, let alone at its peak periods of time. So again, we don't foresee significant conflicts or depriving them of any significant amount of parking.
So, go ahead. I have a question. When will, so you said you were challenging and this is probably not the right word, but the first variance. When would that be determined?
Their hearing is November 12th, and then the zoning hearing board decision and order would be in December.
It's all part of one application, so the zoning hearing board would hear my legal arguments on that issue. We would also then, at the same time, present our testimony with regard to the use and with regard to the parking, all in one proceeding, and the zoning hearing board then would, usually 30 days later at their next meeting, render a decision on both of those issues.
I see sorry.
It sounds like this is a coffee shop that we would love to have in our town, but I have to say I'm opposed to the drive-through in this location because contrary to the comments you made, that part of the parking lot in particular does get very congested at times. So I disagree with your statement about congestion and conflict. So I'm opposed to the drive-through.
I see you have some facade and some photos.
We do.
Just in case you guys wanted to take a look and, see what it might look like. I can pass this around if you guys want.
Have you explored maybe any other options within the township where something like this might be a by right fit?
Well, other than de minimis relief with respect to the parking, we do believe it's a by right use.
Rob, was any consideration given to that area of the parking lot? This area right here is, all of us locals call it a very dangerous intersection, even with the speed bumps, the stop signs, the stop bars, the traffic coming in, traffic coming this way, traffic coming that way, traffic coming that way. Just wondering, I don't know if there was any look at maybe something over here where there's less movement going on, over to this corner. I don't know if it fits. I don't know if it was looked at. Don't know if it was considered. It's a great shopping center. It's one of our best shopping centers in Horsham, and we appreciate Kimco. Is Kimco back there?
Kimco is here.
We appreciate Kimco and the great job they do keeping it not only well-maintained, but also well-occupied. My family visits the shopping center multiple times a week. But it is a busy shopping center, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm just wondering if you had looked at any other locations.
I'm not sure whether or not alternate locations were looked at. I think that from my experience with dealing with Kimco and coming up with the original design, we were looking for an area that, when you look at the actual area that it's in, sorry, Mr. Whiteside, but that is the least busy area. I understand that access point. I'm local as well. I'm in the shopping center on a regular basis. I do know it well. And there are certain challenges, but we felt as though we were off to the side of the main challenge, which is really people coming out of the gas pumps and people trying to head back to the Giant. And so our movement, while coming inbound, they do have to make a left to get over to the proposed 7 Brew. Our exiting movements are now at least right-hand turns. So you're not adding more left-hand turns of people trying to get to the exit. And I do know certainly there are busy peak periods, but I think what to keep in mind here is that this is really considered a complementary use, because the peak period for this use really is when most of the shopping center isn't even open. Or if it is open, not at busy times for them. Peak periods here, I mean, they open at 6:30 and their peak rush is done by 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's prior to most of the traffic in the shopping center and prior to the times that the shopping center is getting busy. So from our perspective, from Kimco's perspective, it's a complementary use. It's not really adding to your, say tonight, if you're trying to get there at 5:30 after work, when you're going to be having much more heavy traffic coming in and out. And this is a model that 7 Brew is following in a number of different areas, and this is really how they're expanding, is they are heading to shopping centers that are hopefully successful, already draw a crowd, but they have unused portions of parking lots that are over-parked, and they're able, because it is such a small footprint, being no seating and what have you, they can fit into those spaces within some of those parking lots. And it's a model that works for them and has continued to operate successfully without the conflicts that a lot are associated with a lot of drive-throughs. I have been involved in a few too many chicken restaurants in various municipalities and seen all of what happens there and how they've tried to adapt. If you've been to the Raising Cane's that just opened in Upper Moreland, I was involved in that as well, and those drive-throughs have different issues because their wait times are so long. And so you get a larger stack, and it's more challenging. But here, between the items that I pointed out, the personal service, both at the ordering point and at the delivery point, and the limited menu items in that it is all beverages, not waiting for food to be prepared. Their service time, your average service time was 2.5 minutes per vehicle. And the other leading coffee purveyor, their time is about 5 minutes. So less than half the time per vehicle.
Was there any look at also like tractor trailer movement? Like a lot of the delivery tractor trailers come in here for Giant, and then those that have to leave by Horsham Road westbound, they usually come behind this way, come around out here, and then they go on Horsham Road. Is there enough turning radius for a tractor trailer to come back and make this turn?
We are not proposing to modify any of the drive aisle locations with this design. It fits in between the existing islands that are there, so we would not be modifying any of those islands that exist in direct traffic. But it is something worth looking at, Bill, because if 6 a.m. happens to be a popular delivery time for Giant for a tractor trailer, it's something we would want to know and to keep in mind to try and avoid those kinds of conflicts, because that could be a bigger conflict than normal customer traffic. So I'm sure we can coordinate with Kimco and try and figure out what those times are to make sure we don't have those conflicts.
Have you guys done the engineering to see if that requires a multi-point turn coming around the exit?
For passenger vehicles?
Yes.
It does not. It meets their standards. It will not. It will be able to operate smoothly. The drive aisles are about 12.5 feet wide, each of those drive aisles.
Onto Horsham Road? I'm talking about exiting, turning right.
The right-hand turn coming around the
Yes,
corner?
the full right.
I would have to double check, but I'm confident that it was designed in a manner that will not require a multi-point turn coming around that corner. Maybe, I mean, we'll definitely take a look at it. It's worth taking a look at. One thing we can do, and I have seen them do, right now you're showing really 2 lanes of egress traffic. You can, one thing that can be done in some of these scenarios when you have a sharper turn is you can narrow this lane so that it becomes more or less forcing everybody to come a little bit wider, making that exiting movement easier. So that's a change that could be made. So after people receive their drinks in 2 lanes, you slowly have them merge as they're going up, I guess that's northbound, into more of a single lane further away from the intersection so that that turning movement would be easier. That's something that can be looked at, and Eric, I'm sure, would point it out if he gets a plan.
Well, is there a staff recommendation on this?
Well, the use of it, we don't, I'm a coffee drinker, so the use of it, we don't have a problem with. But we just, it's the location, and we're concerned about safety. It's not the use, the building's beautiful, the coffee is great. It's the location in the parking lot that we have, an issue with at the staff level. If they're wildly successful, I don't know what control methods we can do to put on, and people do wait for their coffee. They will wait for their coffee. Regardless of how long the line is, they will wait for their coffee. So we do have a concern of the location in the parking lot. So we would be recommendation to be opposed. Again, not the use, not the building, it's just the location we have concerns with in the parking lot.
Okay. Well, sounds like, Mr. Whiteside, you concur with that? Ms. Laff, you concur with that? Concur with that?
I agree, yes.
Yeah, I think none of us are opposed. We appreciate you guys being in Horsham. I think that location could potentially compromise the safety of the residents. I think even the parking with the Navy Fed there could inhibit the ability of veteran community using that location. Very familiar with that. So I think what the council would like to do is to, send it down your way. Being opposed to this.
Do we want a letter to the,
No, you'd have to go.
I'd like to see the solicitor go.
Yeah, you had to go anyway because of their appeal.
okay,
You had to go regardless of council's position for the appeal.
so then we will plan on attending. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is 229 GNA Partners LLC, 229 Fair Oaks Avenue.
This is a residential application, as you said, at 229 Fair Oaks Avenue. They have an existing home at the location where they would like to put a second story and a detached garage. In order to do that, they need a variance. So they have a lawful, non-conforming home and building. So in order to do that, they need a variance that allows them to put this addition on the existing home. The staff is recommending just to be neutral.
Any setback or impervious surface coverage?
No, they meet all of that.
Everybody go with neutral? All right, yep, neutral. The next one was continued for the
continued.
next one? Yep. All right, so next on the agenda is consider change order number 1 to the Nice Construction Services Incorporated contract for the Forester Road Basin and Whetstone Road Basin retrofit project.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Haggerty, who's managing this project.
Simply, there is an undetected Verizon line underneath one of our basins, and it just needs to be redesigned. So that way, the depth of the basin needs to be kind of moved a little bit, so that way the basin works according to plan, which didn't come up in the PA1, so they didn't know until they were out there digging. So that's what the change order is for.
We do also have the funding in the grant that we got for the project. So there's additional money available for the change order.
Thank you. Do we have a move? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just had a question on this. You're just reformatting the basin so that it still works in the way that it needs to work with the Verizon line obstructing the original plan?
Correct.
And is just asking, is it possible to move the Verizon line? Or like, is our original plan better than like the revised plan? Would it be worth?
The revised plan will work fine. It's just, we didn't know that it was there in the first place because it wasn't determined when it was marked for PA1. So it was kind of a surprise. But now knowing that it's there, just the depths have to be adjusted for the redesign. And it's not a big deal. It's only under like a portion of it. It kind of cuts across like 3/4 of it. So just that little section needs to be kind of redesigned. So it's not really too big of a deal.
And to move utilities, I'm going to guess right now is $35,000 to fix it. We'd probably be in the six figures if we tried to redesign Verizon's layout and involve them. We'd probably be closer to $100,000 to relocate their line. Is my guess. It's relocating utilities is extremely expensive.
Okay, fair. Just wanted to ask.
And it would happen 20 years from now.
Verizon does not rush, as some of us who have them know that.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I move to authorize change order number 1 in the amount of $35,000 to the Nice Construction Services, Inc. contract for the Forester Road Basin and Whetstone Road Basin retrofit project.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is to consider a stormwater agreement for the Kohler Park Artificial Turf Project.
Many of you know the Soccer Association completed their turf project. It included stormwater management facilities to include a basin, all on township property. So DEP, as part of their NPDES permit, at the end of the project requires a stormwater agreement with the property owner. So that is in front of you this evening for consideration. It's an agreement to us that gets recorded on the Kohler Park property that the township will maintain the basin as designed.
I got to say, they
Did a good job on that project. Now the water's where it belongs instead of everywhere. I move to approve the stormwater agreement for Kohler Park Synthetic Turf Fields project.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next is to consider a resolution revising the Township's Act 537 sewage facilities plan to provide public sewer service to properties on a portion of Moreland Avenue. Bill?
State law requires us to have a sewer plan, and it's Act 537. And as everyone knows, with the Moreland and Eastern Road traffic signal road improvements, our water and sewer authority added sewer lines. There's a number of homes at the end of Moreland that are still on septic systems. And so this was not originally in our Act 537 plan to run a sewer line at that location, but the decision was made to get the sewer line in before the road construction and the road paving was done for the new intersection, which was done. The sewer lines were put in, but now we had to update our sewer plan, reflecting that sewer line is now installed.
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, revising the Township's Act 537 sewage facilities plan to provide service to existing properties on Westmoreland Avenue.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Glemser, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Laff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right. Next is to announce that the November 4th council meeting is canceled and that the next Horsham Township council meeting will be on Wednesday, November 13th at 8 p.m. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Next meeting is Wednesday, November 13th at 8 p.m. and I skipped one. So the next item on the agenda is consider a resolution establishing a time and place for a public hearing on the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority 725 and 729 East Butler Pike conditional use application 24-13-CU Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 7:45 p.m. in the Horsham Township Municipal Building, 1025 Horsham Road.
This, just to give you a heads up, for this application in this hearing. These are two homes. The Water and Sewer Authority is now installing water lines on Butler Pike between Limekill Pike and Welsh Road. Many of those homes on Butler Pike have contaminated wells and with PFAS, so they're trying to get them clean water. These two addresses, the authority has to cross the repairing corridor to get to the homes with the water lines. So that's the need for the conditional use hearing.
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, establishing a time and place for a public hearing on the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority 725 and 729 East Butler Pike conditional use application for Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 7:45 p.m. in the Horsham Township Municipal Building.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Glemser, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Slaff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right. Once again, the November 4th council meeting has been canceled. The next council meeting is Wednesday, November 13th at 8 p.m. And a reminder, the Horsham Township Library 20th anniversary celebration is November 9th at the library. 2 p.m. library family celebration, open to children and their families. And 6:30 p.m. is the library anniversary reception, open to the community. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.